Hi, hello everyone. We are gonna have some great watch talk today. I will basically go through and present you two or three different lines of Vacheron Constantin from early 2000s, and I consider them a value proposition, both in terms of the brand's own offerings at this point of time, and also in terms of the value they offer in the secondary market against other brands and other models that they would be conventionally associated with. And I'm going to start by talking about the Vacheron Constantin Malte chronographs, which might be a little bit confusing as a line today if you look at their offerings. So let's start by clarifying that confusion. So here you see an example of Vacheron Constantin Malte chronograph. It's a beautiful two-registered chronograph executed in white gold. It's from early 2000s. In this case, it is from 2007. I believe this line was discontinued in 2008 and replaced practically by the chronograph models introduced in Vacheron's line of traditionnel. So this is one example of manual hand-wound chronographs and perpetual calendar chronographs that Vacheron has in their lineup today. And as you can see, for example, in this instance of one executed in pink gold as a perpetual calendar, you see the price point, right? It's $117,000 there. You have, of course, the platinum version price on request. So you can already imagine it's probably 150 and up, possibly much more. And I'm not even sure, in fact, if they have a two-register chronograph here. But more important than that, I always appreciated Vacheron Constantin for going their own way and having some built-in character, let's say, for their interpretations of what are sometimes the predictable but still highly prestigious complications and watches in the realm of that highly contested category of the Holy Trinity. So, if I may say so, the counterparts of these Malte chronographs today in the Vacheron Constantin lineup are in the Historique series, in their series of historical reissues. And in this case, we're talking about the Corne de Vache 1955. Of course, that moniker refers to the highly stylized lugs of this watch, which look like the bull's horns, so to speak, to accentuate, if I may, the boldness and ballsiness of this particular design. And you can find it in three versions today: as a two-register hand-wound chronograph in steel. It retails for right under $45,000, $43,300. In let's take a look at that. As you can see, this is the Gant de Vache in steel. Those distinctive stylized lugs, 2-register chronograph, beautiful, with those heat-blued hands. It's quite a nice execution there. We have it in pink gold. Again, same design elements, but executed in that pink gold, and that retails right under $60,000, right? $58,500. And then you have it in the platinum, of course, and that is 73,000, right under 75. These models themselves actually present decent value in the secondary market as well, insofar as you can find them. But again, it's of course it's very limited production. So if you're lucky enough to get one, and if you already have your mind set on this particular piece of design, it's hard to really offer you an alternative. But if you are interested in a manual chronograph that has a very important legacy movement in it, executed in a very bold case design and in precious metal by prestige brands such as Vacheron Constantin, we have in the secondary market these beautiful examples of the Malte chronograph. Right? What we have here is in white gold, this guilloche decorated center of the dial, the 2 chronograph registers, the telemeter around the outer track of the dial. And again, you have something that's quite distinct from what they have in the traditional lineup today, and quite distinct from the simple, beautiful, classical design of a Patek Philippe chronograph, for example, right? What sets apart Patek, I think, at the price point, especially when it comes to the secondary market and the vintage market and the auction cycle, is perhaps those more simplistic and traditional elements of design. But for any of you who are asking for a little more character, and if you look at this piece, you see something that is very distinctly Vacheron, and in fact kind of plays around with one of the symbols of the brand, right? Because it's a Maltese cross. And of course, that is done in the contemporary overseas line in a more obvious way. But here you have the distinctive lugs, right? And they, to me, are reminiscent of the talons of an eagle, say a Maltese eagle, right? So if you like the design language of this chronograph and the Dauphine / sword hands, and how the finishes of those hands play with the finishing and elements of the case, you're really in for a treat here. The caliber inside, which is presented to you here in an exhibition case back, is one of the, of course, legendary hand-wound calibers. And it's, in this case, Vacheron caliber 1141, right, which is based on the Lemania 2310, which was, of course, the beating heart of the Moonwatch, right? You see here its execution in 321. That Omega brought out again as the so-called Ed White model. And you see it here as its other execution, which is CH2770, which again remains the base. I shouldn't say remains because it was actually replaced by an in-house caliber, but it remained the base of Patek Philippe chronographs, specifically the perpetual calendar chronographs up to 5070. Sorry, I should say hand-wound Patek chronographs, but it was the same base that was modified for the perpetual calendars. Of course, 5070 is a 2-register hand-wound chronograph by Patek. Going back to this Vacheron Constantin caliber 1141, it shares the same heritage as that CH2770, as Omega's 321 movement. And of course, as is the case with the finishing elements of Vacheron Constantin, it's executed at the highest standard which you can find here. And this is the price point, right? This is one of the cheaper examples. It comes with the original box and papers, and it seems to be in good condition. But you can easily find something like this in white gold and other precious metals right around 25,000, right? You see here a piece that is in pink gold that is already reserved, again, original box and papers from the same year, right at that 25K mark. And you see a full set, again, this time based in the US, again, the rose gold, the pink gold, and still priced at 28. Again, I'm not implying by any measure that these are cheap. Nevertheless, for the kind of watch you are getting, this is very, very precious indeed. Guys, thank you so much. I couldn't address the chat for a while, but I want to welcome Patricia Teague, Mr. Skydweller, Mathis, Legend, Big Meech. The Steel Stunner is coming actually at the very end. 49's fine. I love you, man. Taking time. Same. Thanks for, pardon me. Thanks for dropping by. DC Ray Ray, thank you so much for your support. MLMJ, thank you. BC, thank you. And thank you for reminding everyone to upvote as well. The other reason, of course, that people are sometimes confused by the designation Malte is because nowadays Vacheron Constantin also has a line called Malte, where they don't even have at this point a chronograph of any sort. These are dress watches for men and women. There are some complications, but no chronograph. And as you can see, the tonneau case shape is a little more emphasized and stylized in these examples, which is not a bad thing at all, but it's not what corresponds to the Malte series that preceded these up until the year 2008. And this same series also, of course, had their perpetual calendar chronographs, which is very distinctive, and not only in terms of the configuration and complication, right? This is one in yellow gold. Before I move on, I do want to share with you the specific reference number, because if you look for them just as Malte chronograph, you can suffer from the same kind of confusion. The first model we are discussing is reference number 47120. This was the hand-wound Vacheron Constantin Malte chronograph that was discontinued in 2008 and produced in early 2000s. Again, these are all noted down in the description of the video as well, so I don't think it will be a problem. But let's move on to the perpetual calendar version. We are working again with the same base, Lemania caliber 2310 and Vacheron Constantin caliber 1141. Of course, 1141 QP, which stands for Perpetual Calendar in French. Quantième Perpetuel is basically the modified version of the movement we have seen in the hand-wound chronograph that we have just considered. So this is executed in yellow gold. As you can see, it has the two chronograph registers, but of course you get a lot of extra here with the perpetual calendar function. I should point out, of course, that the 47120 has a slightly larger case than both this perpetual calendar I'm presenting and the Corne de Vache that Vacheron has in the current lineup, which is 38.5, I think, in terms of the case diameter. This is a 41.5 case, and those eagle's talons lugs that flay out as a design element gives the watch even a bigger presence, as it were. That's a 22 millimeter lug width there. So again, it's a bigger watch, which may or may not be preferable to you. But perhaps this would be particularly strong for your preference, because this will have a bigger and a different kind of presence than the historique chronograph, which is very classical, but very distinctive and very Vacheron at the same time. The perpetual calendar version is actually a smaller case, but of course a slightly thicker case. And I think it measures right around 39 with 14 millimeter case thickness. It has the same design elements, again, of course, with the addition of those pushers for adjustment. I'm kind of surprised that this example doesn't present us that beautiful movement, but we will see it right here, and you already get the sense of the hinged case back, right? This is what I really love about this particular model, 47112, Malte Chronograph Perpetual Calendar. This example is again yellow gold from year 2001, so quite an early production in this case. Hinged case back, or the officer case back as they sometimes call it. The outside of the case back is already engraved by the brand name Vacheron Constantin Genève. And inside you can see this exquisite movement with all the decoration elements that drive people still toward the Holy Trinity from Geneva, as well as to brands like Lange, Philippe Jean, not to mention a series of other independents. I love everything about this picture except for the excessive men's jewelry, beads, etc. But we're just talking watches. We're just focusing on the watch. You see how beautifully that moon phase is decorated there. It's just amazing. What a great watch. And this is what you're looking at. Right? Today, if you want to get a Perpetual Calendar Chronograph by Vacheron Constantin, you will pay at least 2 times this amount. In the secondary market, if you're looking for a Perpetual Calendar Chronograph, you will pay at least twice if you want to go with a Patek. For example, that 57, let's see. Right, for example, if you're going for the 5270, you'll be paying 3-4 times as much. And you can get this in yellow gold somewhere between $50,000 to $65,000. And in platinum, again, from 65 to 75,000. Look at how beautiful that looks. Platinum Perpetual Calendar with a legacy movement that's properly assembled and decorated by Vacheron Constantin. With this officer's case back, and it is right under $65,000. Right, again, another platinum example. Let's welcome some of our newer guests. BC, love to see you here. 49's fine. Thank you for reminding everyone to upvote. Big George, thank you, saluting us from New York. Love you, man. Thanks for joining me the other day. Saad, General, love you too. The Undertaker, morning to you, my friend. It does look amazing. So these were the 2 main models I wanted to consider. And now the last one is quite an oddball because at times perhaps people are put off by certain products coming from these sorts of prestige brands because of a particular design element, or because it was financially unviable or unsuccessful at the point it was introduced. And somehow they get forgotten. And sometimes they are basically relegated to the dustbin of history. But there are times where they experience a second prime, so to speak, right? In a lot of sports, but especially in boxing, we talk about getting your second wind, right? When you feel completely exhausted and almost depleted halfway through a fight, and somehow by some measure of willpower, and also, of course, days, weeks, months, and years you have put into your training, you're able to tap into a resource that may be even unknown to you, and that somehow emerges at an opportune moment later in the competition. And this was what actually the Vacheron overseas, their sports watch line, experienced. Now, I don't necessarily think that the Royal Eagle will come back in the same moment. But once again, if you are actually a fan of their distinctive design elements, you have in these models in stainless steel with full bracelet, sports chronograph with the big date that uses the same movement as the second generation overseas, as the previous generation of overseas. That was, again, a sleeper until people picked up on the new generation. So this has the same movement as the overseas second generation chronograph in it, but of course the distinctive tonneau case shape, right? You can see the similarity in the lugs with the Malte chronographs that we have discussed, and the similarity in case, of course, since it's a tonneau case. You have, of course, the loom. Again, we're talking about the same period of in the existence of Vacheron Constantin, early 2000s. These are luminated with the material there, right? You also have them as dots at 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock. You have the big date indicator, right, as was very distinctive until the very last year of production, I think, of the overseas chronograph. And you have what Joe loves and what the pontiff calls as a steel stunner here with the VC 1137 movement. It's not visible here, and perhaps Vacheron Constantin would prefer it that way because it's, of course, a round movement, right? Again, beautiful movement based on the Frédéric Piguet 1180, right? Beating at a slightly lower frequency than what we consider to be standard today. But no matter, I actually not only don't mind, but I actually like lower frequency calibers. I find them much less fussy and more long-lasting in a way, but that's another conversation. 40 hours of power reserve. This is, of course, an automatic chronograph movement, right? 6-cone chronograph, clockwise balance cock, central rotor, and it's a round movement, again, used in the overseas chronograph references 49-140 and 49-150. And of course, used here in the Royal Eagle, which was 49-145, an automatic chronograph that has the same movement as the perhaps more recognizable sports model. And you can find these all day, basically, under $10,000 US in the steel. They also had the chronograph models. This is much, much rarer in the pink gold, right? You can find the chronograph version in pink gold as well, as you can see here. Those will be a little more expensive, around $20,000. The steel version with a full bracelet would set you back up to 10K, but I think you can still get one in good condition for a little less. And they were also produced in white and yellow gold, with a day date function. Let me find one of those. Right, we have one right here. Right, and that was in white gold and yellow gold. But the value proposition here is, of course, the stainless steel with the full bracelet. I've had the chance to try some of these on. You can see one in my shorts. Pause. But that I meant the YouTube shorts. When I put one of these on, again, a very unique case shape. You have to love it. You have to, it needs to sink to you. It needs to sit right on your wrist. I'm not sure if it sits quite right on mine, but for the right person, you are getting a stainless steel sports chronograph from Vacheron Constantin right under 10K. And I don't think this is the kind of deal that you would lose your shirt over in mid to long term. Mr. Copper Blue, thank you for upvoting. Loose Tooth, love older Vacheron Constantin Perpetuals. Me too. Like the skeleton. 4303. Let's pull that up. 43032. Yeah. We don't have it here. So Vacheron Constantin 43032. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, incredible, incredible. Of course, this is the patrimony case. So much more, again, much more traditional, much more simplistic, much more classical in design. But of course, that is combined with the grand complication, like a perpetual calendar, but also the skeletonized execution. And I mean, look at that. Right? Look at the way they skeletonized and decorated the rotor as well. Beautiful. Archive of Sorts, thank you for reminding everyone to upvote and support. Al, thank you. Big George, I think on that, buy the one on the steel bracelet and wear it on a strap. Absolutely. Again, it's a little bit of an oddball, right? It's a little bit of a different shape. But the bracelet actually wears really well. It feels so good on the wrist. But I love, you know me, I love playing around with different kinds of straps when it comes to my sports watches. I like taking off the bracelet once every so often, putting on a leather band, putting on sometimes a NATO strap, putting on even a rubber strap to a watch that fits, that befits such a strap like the 5513, the vintage Submariner. Um, that's the beauty of a lot of sports watches, that you can basically dress them up and dress them down in different ways, and really play with different aspects and characteristics of the watches depending on uh, what you pair them with. You know, if it's like a crocodile or alligator leather band, and if you're working with a simplistic design like a no date Submariner, you can make it look like almost a dress piece. If you are working with something like this and you put it on a calfskin leather strap, you can possibly make it look sportier and edgier than the steel bracelet, which again is already great, but you're getting more of the watch by giving yourself those options for customization. All right, I was hoping that to finish up right under half an hour, and I've gone on for too long already. For those of you who dropped by and or better yet, who have stayed with me for this half hour, I love you. Thank you for your support and presence. If you haven't yet, please upvote, and please share the word far and wide. This is not a clueless watch channel like some others around. This is where we have actual watch talk. This is where we learn together so we can be more distinctive, so we can be more conscious, so we can be more informed in our choices, so we can get the best and most of the time and money we invest in this particular passion. With that said, please spread the word about the channel. And if you want to help me to reach 1,000 subscribers, that's always the best method. But until then, if you want to encourage me to create new and unique content where I go out and film myself out and about in Los Angeles, bring you some different kinds of watch content, not only from of course the usual stores and boutiques, but also from people who work on leather straps, people who work on actual watchmaking, dial and case decoration here in Southern California, like the maker of the American watch brand J.N. Shapiro. For all of that, consider please a PayPal donation to Lord Hellespont V at gmail.com. That's Lord Hellespont V at gmail.com. And if you have any questions for me, any requests for personalized videos or future topics, you can use the same email address. If you want me to review your collection in the form of an interview on a live stream, again, you drop an email to lordhellespontv at gmail.com with a small donation. And in each case, I would be more than happy to make a personalized video for you and dedicate a live stream to you. Thank you again for your support. Upvote and spread the word. Lord SW, Lord SW, Lord SW, Finches of Prey. Thank you, my friend, for being here. I thank you all, love you, and I will see you soon.